sleeping.
Yes, yes, Sir Hairless here. Today we have Pentatonix, The Sound of Silence. Now, I'm told this is a cover of Disturbed's cover of the original song, very famous, by Simon and Garfunkel. Because of this, and to make sure I'm fully prepared, my last video was Disturbed's cover. Very interesting, very, very cool cover, I think. Please check that out if you have not seen that before watching this, because it's a deep dive into the basis of the song. If this is a cover of Disturbed's version, I have no doubt that my video on Disturbed's version will be useful. I've done one other video on The Sound of Silence, and that was also an a cappella cover. That was Peter Hollins with Tim Faust. If you like Pentatonix and you like a cappella, then I almost guarantee you will like that version. It was really lovely, really nice. And again, shameless self-plug, but please do check out my video on that. I talk about their version in relation to the original song. So between my two previous videos on The Sound of Silence, there are discussions of both the original and Disturbed's version. So whichever version Pentatonix are covering here, I think we're well equipped.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Oh, Scott, sorry, I forgot to say in the intro just now, I will also be watching a live performance Pentatonix have done of this that's been recommended to me a lot. It's the Hollywood Super Bowl 2022. That will come at the end of this video over on Patreon, and that video will be linked below if you want to see that. All right, let's go again.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again, because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence. In restless dreams of silence.
It's not often that I have to pause and replay a bit. Usually I wait and do the big pause, but I have to hear.
Silence.
There are several reasons. The first thing, we get a little on every half beat, which would point towards multi-tracking, or Kevin is doing these on every half beat and singing on every other half beat.
Of silence.
And as for the parts, I'm pretty sure Kevin is going, and then the last note could be Mitch, but then he comes in immediately. So it makes sense to be Kevin, but it doesn't sound like Kevin. I'm going to leave that. There's another bit earlier on that's really, really fascinating to me, and I'm going to want to take a deeper dive into that. So we're going to do our first pause here. If you don't want to hear my analysis, go to the timestamp. All right, let's take it back to the beginning. I won't spend time on the obvious, but the solo opening by Scott.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk.
Unaccompanied, so it's just him. It really exaggerates this low register that we don't hear of him. At least I haven't heard much of him, especially not that exposed. So for me, it's a new level of exposure to his lower register. He's lucky because his voice sounds lower than it is. I think so anyway, which is what you want when you're singing low. I mean, it is low. That's a bottom E that he's singing. Oh. For context, that's the lowest note your lowest choral bass is expected to sing. I mentioned that in my Disturbed video, but interestingly, in that version, the lead singer, David, he doesn't linger on that low note. He makes a melodic adjustment. He doesn't sing that low note twice. As we get in the original, he moves up.
I've come to talk with.
Scott doesn't do that. He sings that note 3 times, actually. If you close your eyes and listen.
I've come to talk with you again.
That could be the voice of a seasoned bass singer. New exposure to bass Scott, as I will call him now. And the timbre, the tone, the texture of his sound down there. It's really cool to see. And they are in the same key as Disturbed, which is here. The original is here.
While I was sleeping,
We get nice standard chords here. The top part is acting as the inverted static note that we'd see in a cadential 6/4. We don't need to worry about what that is, but to show you on the keyboard, typically, at least in classical music, it's a nice way of doing this type of cadence. You have a static note on the bottom, and then the top notes in thirds move. But that static note is now on the top. I'd imagine it's because the melody, again, quite unconventionally, is at the bottom, so the static note is as far away from the melody as it can be. Static on top, moving parts in the middle, melody at the bottom. Now, we have Kevin singing. Yes, I always love to see that.
Softly creeping, left its seeds while I was sleeping.
But I hate how well he blends in, because I can't figure out who is singing which part. This is a great thing. I always say with a cappella, I mean, it depends on the type of the song, but usually the standardized goal should be to have the parts indistinguishable from each other. You should not be able to easily tell who's singing each part. If you can't figure it out, that means there's a good blend, which means there's a good group sound, which means they're working well as a team to produce the best sound for the group as possible. As soon as I heard this the first time, and that's kind of why I've paused and I'm going over it.
Sleeping.
Kevin's type of voice and that A at the top. It's a bit of an airy sound here, and my first instinct immediately is that that's Kevin at the top there. We know how pinpoint his tuning is and how well he works as a group sound rather than a soloist with this dramatic operatic vibrato, for example. I've listened to that bit a couple more times, and before I continue, I have to say this is one of the hardest a cappella moments I've had on this channel in determining who's singing each part. And because of how simple the arrangement is at this point, I think that's even more impressive what Pentatonix have done. The blend is just so good, a really, really nice sound.
The vision that was planted in my brain.
Anyway, this part I'm pretty sure confirms it's Kevin at the top. I might want to notate it as sheet music, and then I'll probably play it together and then show each part individually. Hopefully that's a little bit helpful if you're wanting to sing along and you want to sing as Mitch or Kirsty. Okay, I've been notating, I've listened to it a handful of times. I've changed my mind. I love this. They could literally, Kirsty, Mitch, Kevin, be singing any of the three parts, and it would make sense. So I'll show you the notation. All I ask is that there are no arguments in the comments about who is singing which part. So here's Kirsty's part on the top. Here's Mitch's part. And here's Kevin's part. And here's everything together. Okay, straight up, that was the most difficult section of a cappella transcribing I've done to date on this channel, not because of the arrangement complexity, but because of the blend. I don't need to say any more. I think it really speaks for itself how impressive I think this blend and this sound is. And it's with Kevin singing as well, and he's not a regular singer. That's not his primary role in this group. Ugh, I hope I have enough brain power to get to the end of this, because I've used a lot already. And just before we carry on, I like how they end this first verse. We have chords rising up, finishing on the expected chord, which is the home chord of F sharp minor.
Still remains.
But the root note, the F sharp, is at the top instead of the bottom. So coupled with this rising motion, it almost seems like there's no closure. The closure comes with the next line, straight in with a classic 4/3 suspension.
In the sound.
Ooh, I feel like I've not spoken about suspensions for a while, where one note doesn't move as the chord changes, causing dissonance, and then it resolves to fit in with the chord. All right, let's carry on.
Silence.
In restless dreams I walked alone, narrow streets of cobblestone, neath the halo of a street lamp, I turned my collar to the cold and damp, when my eyes were stabbed by the flash of a neon light that split the night and touched the sound of silence.
And in the naked naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more. People talking without speaking. People hearing without listening. People writing songs that voices never share. And no one dare disturb the sound of silence. Of silence. Of silence. Of silence. Fool said you do not know.
Oh, there comes a key change. Weirdly, I wasn't expecting one with this song. Maybe because it's a Disturbed cover. Well, it's Pentatonix. I was naive to not have been expecting one. There's a lot that's happened there. Second pause. I want to start with Kevin, and I'll come back to the rhythms in a bit more detail because there's quite a drastic change. But I just love his percussion sounds in this. Yeah, they sound a little bit treated. It's a studio version, so fair enough. A little bit of a reverb effect, but so cool, and it's a very subtle choice of sounds.
Dreams I walked alone. Narrow
I think of them as more open sounding as far as percussive sounds go. So we've had this very natural handover of the melody to Mitch because the melody has moved up the octave. In the accompaniment, we have O's, and like we saw before, they're really focusing on static versus moving parts.
narrow streets of
There could be many reasons for this, but I think it's, well, the effect. It creates this feeling of fluidity, of movement, as well as a substantial chordal sound, a bit of a heavier sound, a fuller sound. So kind of it's like the best of both worlds. Scott's got the movement sandwiched in between the static parts, Kirsty above and Matt below. And Matt's static part, it's the bass entry, the first time we've heard the bass. It's a drone effectively, very, very simple. He just sings and then moves up one note.
narrow streets of cobblestone.
But simple as it is, it just adds this depth to the sound, especially as the melody has now moved further away from the low depths up the octave. And Matt's part, again, simple as it is, has this kind of added power to it because it's so simple. He moves on the standard strong beats compared to the others who are moving homophonically with the melody on the off beats.
I turn my collar to the cold and damp.
The bass's role is usually a support. This just gives it that extra strength, strengthened further by its cadential movement, just simply moving between the two root notes. Overall, so far, I think it's a very tidy arrangement is the word that I'll go for. Harmonically speaking, it's a very, very iconic song, a very calm song, not one where you'd probably take it and turn it funky by adding all these crazy chords in there. But we know Pentatonix like their dissonance, and there was this one example that really stood out. Just one harsh dissonance quickly before carrying on as they were.
I turn my collar to the cold.
But not too long after that, they have a really more exaggerated one to end a phrase with a nice big chord.
And touch the sound.
That's an E chord with an A in it. And then to go just back before that, another great example of static versus moving parts. Matt has the lowest part, static on ooh. Kirsty, the highest part, static but singing words. And Mitch and Scott are moving in the middle with words.
When my eyes were stabbed by the flash of a neon.
So yeah, there's just a nice mix of everything. Words, ooh, static, moving. It's the best of all the worlds. All right, then we get this stylistic change. There's a lot to talk about with this arrangement, really.
10,000 people.
The bass part, Scott now has the bass part. If I hadn't heard him earlier at the beginning and been exposed to his lower register like that, I might have had a bit more doubt as to whether this bass part is multi-tracked. It seems in the a cappella world with the studio recordings, using the bass singer for the bass part when they have a melody elsewhere, it just makes sense. But I also want to take this opportunity to go back to my first ever Pentatonix reaction. Video Killed the Radio Star. Card up here if you're interested. That could be quite interesting if you haven't seen that. I'll just show a clip of my video where I see how high Scott goes, and I kind of figure out it's Scott going that high. But here, in the Radio Star bit, I'm pretty sure that she is not singing the highest part.
Radio Star.
Is the part that she's singing. So does that, who's singing the other part? Well, him. The lead tenor guy, he's singing the... He's going that high? Really?
Radio
The guy has got range. Matt takes over the melody. As for his melody, it's very powerful, not really surprising.
People writing songs.
I was wondering if he'd go to that top A. In chest voice specifically, keeping up with this notion of power, rising melody, etc. Which, by the way, is higher than your typical choral tenor is expected to sing. But Mitch comes in and takes over with such ease. What a voice. Okay, so to go to the stylistic change and why it suddenly sounds so different. In my opinion, it's mainly due to the rhythmic changes. And if you watch Kevin's leg, that's the huge key.
People talking without speaking.
Dum, dum, dum. You've heard me talk many times about the hemiola, 3 beats in the space of 2. And this is the same principle, but slightly different. I'll probably head over to the music software again to run through this. So we have 4 beats in a bar. You have 2 half beats per beat. And then you have 2 quarter beats per half beat, so 4 quarter beats per beat. In this regard, music is quite mathematical. How many of the smaller beats fit into a bigger beat, you know, that kind of thing. This is the rhythm that we get now. And if we play this along with the half beats, so as I showed before, you have 1 beat, 2 half beats per beat, 4 quarter beats per beat. They get smaller by increments of 2. What these notes are with the dot, they look similar to the half beats, but the dot means 1.5. So each one of these is equal to 1.5 of these, or you can also think of it as being as 3 of these quarter notes. So as you can see, 3, 3, 3, 3 is equivalent to 4 of these. But then if you had 3, there'd then be one little one left over, which is why they then revert back to the regular rhythms. So while we do hear this in the singers, in Kirsty and Mitch, it really prevails all the way through in Kevin's percussion, and they're showing this in the video with his stamps. So the underlying driving rhythmic force, which comes through Kevin as the beatboxer, it's this funked up rhythm that disrupts the much simpler standard rhythms that are always divisible by 2. And then we get the key change. It's a very well done key change because it's significant. It's not just moving up a semitone like you'd usually see.
Of silence.
Kirsty takes over. This is where we paused. I imagine it's so Kirsty can now really belt up high if she keeps the melody, and if they don't do another key change. If that happens, then she would go up to a...
You do not know. Silence like a cancer grows. Hear my words that I might teach you. Take my arms that I might reach you. But my words like silent raindrops fell and echoed in the wells of silence.
In the people mountain red to the neon god they made.
And the sun flashed out its warning, and the words that he was for me. And the sign said the words of the prophets are written on the subway walls and tenement halls, and whispered in the sound of silence.
There's something about finishing the song. It's so quietly, and especially when you have this huge growth throughout the song beforehand, just like Disturbed did. Well, before we go and watch the live Hollywood Bowl 2022 performance, let's go over some bits from that last section. These rhythms.
Silence like a
Really reminds me of their cover of O Come All Ye Faithful. Joyful rhythms. If you've seen that, you'll know what I mean. And if not, please check out my reaction to that. Christmas is fast approaching at the time of recording. We've got a big sound, that's obvious now, but it's the little things like Mitch here in the background. He goes up to... Kirsty is using a very rapid vibrato as well, consistently to even her top D.
But my words like silent raindrops fell.
Which makes this exaggerated descent on fell even more stand out because the falling notes are straight tone and then the occasional longer note is this rapid vibrato. And then the handover to Scott. Great entry for Scott, I think. We get a big opening up of the sound. The bass part was falling, the other parts were rising. Scott's done it all in this arrangement, hasn't he? So I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I've just met bass Scott. Now, if he continues singing this melody, it's so high, surely not, surely not. But again, Mitch so seamlessly just takes over the transitions between them. So smooth, as always. It's just a massive sound. If we were hearing this live without microphones, so no audio level adjustments, acoustically, it would be belt central. Kirsty, Mitch, and Scott at this particular moment, they'd be absolutely dominating the sound. It would be a huge, huge sound, which, like I said, as soon as it ended, makes this quieter ending all the more powerful. Nice unison ending, but we can very briefly hear the minor third in there. I wonder what that is. Did you hear that very, very briefly just coming through? Yeah, I mean, you can see how that followed Disturbed's cover in terms of trajectory, in terms of the growth throughout. Low to high, quieter to louder, thinner to thicker texture. Of course, Pentatonix sneak in a rather significant key change, making the most of this growth and having Kirsty take it one step further. Yeah, look, I've probably waffled on for far too long, and we still have the live performance to see. So if you want to see that, like I say, link will be below to the full video on Patreon. And if not, well, let's leave that one there. Thank you as always for watching. This one has been recommended to me quite a lot, so thank you to everyone who recommended it. Comment down below your Pentatonix favorites you'd like to see me do videos on. Would appreciate a like and subscribe, and if you'd like to support me, you can buy me a hot chocolate at the link down below or join my Patreon linked on the screen now for access to exclusive content not on YouTube, and I will see you next time.